Hello, Fit Fam, and welcome to the Fit Doc Podcast, the podcast where we teach you how to be mentally fit and physically strong. This week, we have some amazing guests who will be discussing financial fitness. You may wonder, what does finances have to do with fitness? But as a doctor, I see how your finances will impact your health. Planning for medical emergencies, making sure your family is taken care of, and simply just the stress of finances can all impact your health and wellness, which is why today's guests are Rob and Sharon Hoskins, who's a power couple, and they do family estate specialists. The Hoskins will share you exactly how to prepare your finances and to make sure that you are developing generational wealth. Before we start with the Hoskins, we're going to talk about today's hot topic. You always wonder, how many steps can I get in a day? But a recent study has shown that if you get in at least 8,000 steps twice a day, that can significantly improve your health. So walking briskly 8,000 or more steps a day is associated with decreased mortality from cardiovascular disease, and you are less likely to die when they've looked it over a year follow-up later. This was a study that was released by JAMA, which is very trusted, and they looked at people who were 20 years old and older and who took 8,000 or more steps 1 or 2 times a week. And they were 15% less likely to die compared to those who didn't do any exercise. So it's important that we increase our routine of walking. And when we say increase, I'm talking about brisk walking. And if you can actually sing a song sing the lyrics of a song, that means you're going not at the right space. You should be at the point where if you're trying to sing a song, you should be a little breathless. That's how you know that you're moving enough. So now on to our interview with the Hoskins. Hello, Fit Fam. I am so excited about our next segment for the Fit Doc Podcast. Today, I have the honor and privilege of introducing Rob D. Hoskins and Sharon T. Hoskins, who are both experts in family law. And I'm so excited because Rob really focuses on estate planning. And these are going to be things that we're going to be discussing so we can be fit legally and financially. So as far as Rob, he's been in practice since 1997. And after law school, he decided to put his skills into politics and also to practice labor law. And while serving as an in-house counsel to one of New York's largest labor unions, 1199, he worked in disciplinary actions, contractual disputes under various collective bargaining agreements. His sharp negotiating skills and his no-quit attitude, which I like, helped to produce very favorable results for his clients. He is this is live. His wife is Sharon Hoskins, and she's practiced matrimonial and family law since graduating from New York Law School in 1997. And Sharon's expertise is in matrimonial law, but she has so much knowledge in negotiating when you have high net worth and wealthy clientele. And she's very experienced in negotiation of complex marital agreements, separation agreements, prenup agreements, child custody dispute, child support, so much that I'll just let her tell you everything that she's good at. But what I'm also impressed with both of them is they are into what? Fitness. So, whenever you see Dr. Reed, we are always going to put in something about being healthy. That's mentally, physically, spiritually, sexually. But at the same time, we want you to be fit legally and financially. So this segment is going to focus on us being fit legally and financially. So before I jump in, because the two of them are really a power couple. They have been working together in Hoskins LLP, which you can see right behind both of them, since 2013. So happy 10 years of working together, Hoskins family.
Thank you.
Now, before we jump right in, question. I'm going to go to Rob first. Rob, what is your favorite way to stay healthy
Oh,
And there's always a twist with me. What is your favorite way to be healthy? Um,
okay.
and how long you've been doing it and why do you do it?
Well, I guess for me, the best way that I stay healthy is going to see my doctor, and number two, getting exercise. So making sure that you know, I stay active, playing sports, running, just generally staying as active and working out. We ride bikes. We do a lot of activity, um, and that's what I get the most of my healthy activity from. And it's mostly inspired by my wife, who is, as you know, an avid runner and marathoner.
Well, you know, what he's leaving out, he's being modest, is that he still, over the age of 50, plays
Mhm.
baseball, not softball,
True.
baseball.
That's
Yeah,
huge, man.
exactly. He leaves that out, but I don't know why. But, and he's a catcher. So that's a lot of squatting and,
Oh,
and
wow.
jumping up and down.
Strong knees
Mhm.
And
and
it
good
hurts.
core muscles, man.
It hurts more now. So I may be transitioning into golf.
All right. And we're going to jump to Sharon. So, Sharon, we met through Black Girls Run.
Absolutely.
And I know you have done umpteen thousand marathons. You started biking and swimming. Now, what component of exercise do you enjoy the most and why?
You may have thought that I would say running, but since I started swimming because I moved into doing triathlons, I love open water swimming.
Mm.
It's just it's relaxing, it's freeing. You just out in the water, you just feel, it's almost like magical. It's just, and I'm always amazed at myself that, oh my God, I'm out here and like I can't touch the bottom, and I don't know what else might be swimming in this water. Because we're in Long Island, New York, and I swim off of Tobay Beach. You really can't see through the water.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the
Yes.
nicest, prettiest water to be in, but I really love swimming. And I still love running and still do a lot of it, except I've had some injuries that keep me from it. But with those injuries, I can still do the swimming.
Oh,
Biking, I'm not so good at. I fall off a lot. Not good at that at all.
but that's all right. And we appreciate both of you and your honesty. I know that has nothing to do with the two of you being attorneys, but I think it's important that people see the other side of you besides being attorneys, but also what you do, because your physical health is very important to each of you. So we're going to just jump right in. One of the things that I've noticed over the last 3 years of, especially during COVID, is that we had so many people, not even just famous people, but people in general who passed away, and family members were coming to me as the doctor to help them obtain death certificates, determine what needed to be done with assets. And of course, I'm always referring them to attorneys. So, speak to us in real talk about how many people actually, because statistically, I saw like they said 2/3 of Americans don't have any type of estate planning at all. And I know we always think about estate planning because of the word estate, that you had to have tons of money. But I need you just to sort of break it down exactly how many people do have estate planning done and exactly what is it?
Those statistics are right. So we had during the pandemic a lot of people passing away. Here in New York City, in particular, many people passed away without having prepared a will, and some people had a will, which makes for a very backed up surrogate court system.
Mhm.
And right now, the surrogate courts, especially in Brooklyn, which is Kings County and Queens, are really working with a very small crew. Because remember, during the pandemic, the court system was shut down as well.
Mhm.
So all of those things are taking a lot of time to do. And so the important thing is that you have a lot of those people who own houses and may have had bank accounts. So Those are estates. Those are the things that comprise your estate, the different assets that you have, your house, your bank accounts, your stock portfolios, your 401ks and IRAs and what have you. And without any instructions, your family members are left to figure out what it is that you want to have, what you wanted to have done to it, who gets what, and how. And that's why an estate plan is so important, because there are a lot of family members who just don't know, and asking, by virtue of them asking a doctor
Mm-hmm.
what to do. I mean, we have doctors that are clients, they don't know. I mean, doctors are very smart people,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but not everyone knows what to do legally when it comes to assets and those accounts and everything else. So estate planning is essentially, the arrangement of and management of your assets, and making sure that there are instructions that are left for your family members after you pass away as
Mm-hmm.
to what they're supposed to do with your assets, and determining who gets what.
And I want to add, if I can,
Mm-hmm.
that Rob mentioned instructions, and estate planning is an instruction book, and it's not just about what happens after you die. There are plans that you should have in place for while you're still living.
Mm-hmm.
If particularly if you become ill or incapacitated,
Okay.
you can use your estate plan, the instructions you have there, to let your loved ones know how you want to be cared for. And you can also protect your assets that you have, so that if you need care and, for instance, need to qualify for Medicaid to help pay for that long-term care,
Mm-hmm.
you can, if you have a plan in place, you can protect those assets from Medicaid coming and saying, well, you have resources and we want you to use that up before we give you our resources.
So
But
I was going to say, now, can you explain that a little bit more? Only because when patients come in to see me, usually around 50, 55, they've asked us, as far as the insurance company, to talk to them about whether or not they have a healthcare proxy, whether or not they have a living will in place. And now they're asking about estate planning. So I sort of start that conversation. Most people don't have an attorney to go to, especially like the two of you. So as a doctor, what type of planning or coursework can I sort of lead my patients into that direction, past the healthcare proxy?
Well, I would say, if you get that question as a doctor, and all of your colleagues should immediately send that patient to our workshop that we give twice a month on Zoom, online, and we explain what an estate plan is, and we go over each and every document, because an estate plan is not just, sometimes you hear about trusts and you hear about wills, and you need to understand what the difference is between the healthcare proxy and a power of attorney is.
Mm-hmm.
We go over all of that, and in a good estate plan, a good estate plan has all of those documents in it. And what we do is, our mission right now is to give, the reason why we do the workshop online is we want the client educated first. So we give you the education, the straight information on what the documents are, what the plan, what the different, what they do, what they don't
Mm-hmm.
do, and then you come in and you meet with us to talk about your specific needs. Because that way, once the client has that information, they
Mm-hmm.
know what questions they have to ask, and they know what assets they have to think about in terms of what they want to do, and what the difference is with the healthcare proxy, the living will, and the power of attorney, and what can be done with that. Because you may have one person as your healthcare proxy, you might have somebody else as your power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in most cases, it's typically the spouse, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't always have to be that way.
So Sharon, can you explain what a power of attorney is?
well, a power of attorney is a document that you sign where you appoint someone that you trust who can act on your behalf. And the power of attorney is only good while you're still alive. So it's when, it comes into play when you may be ill or incapacitated and can't do something, or in other instances that people are maybe perfectly healthy, but they can't be present. So you may have seen it in a real estate closing where they may have signed a power of attorney to give another person the specific authority to act on their behalf in closing that deal. There are a number of different legal activities that are listed on that power of attorney. You can designate which powers you want to give to that person. You don't have to give them full and complete authority over everything. You can actually put limitations. And so that power of attorney is a very powerful document that can be very useful. And one of the things that we do when we prepare powers of attorney for our clients is we make sure that we add language in there that says it has to be tied into the rest of the plan. So that the person you authorize to act for you has to act in a way that is in concert with the instructions that you gave. Don't want them running off and doing anything they want to do. Right? And that's why it's very important to choose someone that you can trust.
And now, majority of the time, do people choose family members or their oldest child? How does that actually work?
That's very common. Usually it's the spouse is usually the first choice. And then when there are children, a lot of people choose their oldest child, but it's not always the oldest because you know your children, right? So you pick the one that has that type of organized mind and or someone who's very good with numbers, depending on the reason why you are signing that power of attorney. Again, the most important thing is someone that you trust.
And now, Rob, how does that come into play because I know you guys handle matrimonial law too. So how does that handle when you have a divorce as far as planning?
Well, the divorce expert is Sharon. So, but listen, the divorce, right? So an estate plan is an ongoing thing. It's something that you put into place early, but it's a constantly changing thing. And divorce is one of those life-changing moments. And, like the birth of a child or the marriage is a life-changing moment. So just like any of those episodes in life, you have to say, okay, now I'm getting divorced. What do I need to do? I have to look at, who are my beneficiaries in my estate plan? Who are my beneficiaries on my insurance policies? Do I want to leave my now ex-spouse as the beneficiary? If sometimes people don't think about that next phase, and that's the next step that you have to look at, and you say, well, I have a beneficiary designation on my 401k at work, and you don't think about that when you get divorced because let's say you didn't split it up or you kept it or whatever it is, right? But you still have that ex-spouse listed as the beneficiary. It could be a problem. It could be a big problem.
Okay, and good answer, Rob. And
what he's talking about. I don't know what's Rob's problem.
So I do want to say with respect to that is that one thing to understand, and people don't know this until they get in it. Once a divorce case is filed, then you actually are not permitted to make any changes to your beneficiary. So you cannot change your health care, your health insurance. You cannot change the beneficiaries on your IRA, 401k, life insurance, and so forth, because everything must remain status quo until the case is resolved or settled. So once that's filed, no changes. But it is important to remember to go back and make those changes. And it's usually part of the settlement deal.
So I was going to say, so then if you're thinking about getting a divorce, then that means that that's the time when you can freely change your beneficiaries?
You can. I'm not necessarily advocating for that because we want to make sure that if there are children involved and so forth, that they're still going to be protected with, having health insurance coverage for them.
Okay.
Or if anything should happen, because things happen in life. And there have been plenty of cases where someone may have passed away in the midst of a divorce. And now if those changes were already made, that the surviving family members are now not listed as a beneficiary. It could be
Okay.
someone else. So that's part of the reason why the courts have instituted rules to say you can't change anything during the pendency of the action. But again, that's something that practitioners, as they're doing it, it's part of the settlement to make sure everything is divided the way it should be. And then you have that freedom afterwards to change your beneficiaries. And take a look at your will and your estate plan. If you have one, or if you didn't have one, that's a life-changing event where you should be going in and adjusting that estate plan.
Yep.
So now, Rob, how soon do you think people should actually start estate planning?
Well, you can start thinking about an estate plan as early as possible. I tend to think of it in terms of the quarters of our lifespan. So, let's say, in the first 20 years, 20 from birth to 21, you're not really thinking about an estate plan because you're a child and you're
Mm-hmm.
in school and you're getting through college. It really, starts in your 20s when when you start to adult
Mm-hmm.
and you start to purchase a home, you get married, you have kids. So all of those life-changing episodes, life-changing events. So then you want to start thinking about the things that you have, your assets, and also the people you want to protect.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is all about. It's all about protection of the people that you love and care about. And one of the things that we say in terms of estate planning is you want to protect those people. And while you're doing that, you never want to give anything to anyone that you love and care about. So that's one of the things that we always say, and people kind of look at us like, "Well, what do you mean by that?"
Mm-hmm.
It sounds a little crazy because it is, but with a good estate plan, the idea is you're not necessarily giving things away to people, you are protecting people. And an estate plan, when you start to accumulate assets between 20 and let's say 40,
Mm-hmm.
and from 40 to 60, obviously your children are older, they graduated high school, maybe graduated college. Now
Mm-hmm.
you're an empty nester, and maybe it's just you and the spouse, or if you've broken up or whatever, you've got some assets. Maybe you started a business and you have other assets there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to start thinking, that's the best time really to start thinking about, okay, what am I going to do with all this stuff? I have my income, but I also have property, I have stocks, I have all these savings. If something happens to me, what happens to this stuff? And
Mm-hmm.
do I want my kids to have? What do I want them to have? Or do I want to take care of my grandchildren?
Okay.
And like I said, you don't want to give anything to your grandchildren or your children because what you want to do is you want to protect them because a windfall of money can be a blessing, obviously, but it
Mm-hmm.
can also have some unintended consequences. So there's tax issues. There's, one thing that we do hear about a lot is, if I put my house, my child on the deed to my house,
Mm-hmm.
and that'll avoid probate, right? Because that's one of the things that we talk about as
Mm-hmm.
well is the avoidance of probate. You want your property passed uh, very easily. But that's the wrong thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's has some unintended consequences where that you may not even think about because when you put a child on the deed to your home, they become a legal co-owner of your house.
Mm-hmm.
So if, for example, you wanted to refinance your mortgage, you would have to ask their permission.
Mm-hmm.
They could also um, sell their portion of the house
Okay.
without your permission. And you're also subjecting that property to that child's creditors as well.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we all know our kids. Some kids are good with money, some kids aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And some kids, and we live in a very litigious society.
That's
Your
true.
child could get sued for whatever reason, and that asset, now that they're a co-owner, is available is an available asset to them, and there are plenty of attorneys that will look at that as a potential source of money for recovery.
Mm.
So there's a lot, and there's a few other things, but there's a lot of consequences to doing things like that. And so what we try to do is educate everyone, you know, on those different things. And so when you're in it, depending upon what's part of life you're in,
Mm-hmm.
and you're thinking about protecting your assets and
Mm-hmm.
you know yourself and your family, it's never too early to start. Um, and so those are the kinds of things that you want to think about, and those are the kinds of things that we always um, express to clients.
For me, it almost seems like you need to start different stages. So when you're starting to get married, maybe even then have the conversation. Or if you're single, you're getting ready to buy a house. That might be another stage. I mean, because not everyone does the traditional route of getting married, buy a house. Like things go in different orders. But it, like you said, it seems like whenever something major happens in your life, then that's probably the time to do it, and then also to reassess it. Um,
Exactly.
but for me, it's like I just want to have people know where to go, how to find attorneys, because I know if I send everybody to you, you guys would be like, okay, love you, but don't.
No, send them
But
all over.
We'll take them.
I
That's how
think
we do
it's
it.
a really important conversation that we have, because more times than not, a couple of things that we don't want to talk about is usually our health and our finances.
Mhm.
And we know, especially during what we've experienced those last couple of years, that when your health and your finances aren't in whack, or they're not in synchrony together, we're seeing all of this other disease going on, especially mental health, because the stress has lead to anxiety and depression. And so all of that comes back to your health and making sure your finances are straight. Because I don't want to go through what we went through, over the past 3 years. And yes, Sharon is on speed dial for me because, I've referred many patients to her from either divorce or now what we're going through with estate planning. So that's why we thought it was a really good idea to have the two of you to come forward and really try and, just do a little bacon bite as far as the bigger picture. And if people want the whole pig, sorry, I'm using pork. But, if they want more information, we're going to make sure that we include your information as to how to get in contact with you.
Sure.
But before we sign off, I guess from Rob and from Sharon, you can be in either order. What are like two key things that you think that if you're not doing now that you need to do, and why?
I'll start.
Okay, I would say definitely you want to have a conversation with your family members and loved ones about what it is, what your intentions are, your desires are for how you want to live or be treated if it comes to a point where you can't speak for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So at that stage in life, and also at death, because communication is key. And a lot of times what happens with families when someone passes is, the relatives start fighting
Mm-hmm.
because everybody thinks they know what that the deceased person wanted
Mm-hmm.
or would have liked. But the only way to know for sure is to have that in writing. And so it dispels all of the disagreements and tension between the family members, because all you have to do is say, look, she wrote it right here, or he wrote it right here. We need to just follow that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we call it, it's called estate planning, but we call it life and legacy planning, because it's not just about death, it's also about life, and also about the life of the ones you leave behind and how fulfilling it can be without being mired in disagreement and tension. Because I know families who to this day still don't speak because of what happened after a loved one dies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to add, our sort of little acronym that we use is PEACE. We promote peace for the family. And that stands for protection. That's your asset protection, education, We want to make sure everyone knows what's out there and what their options are. Assistance, we're here to provide help with whatever you need. Comfort in knowing that you have your plan in place. You can exhale and breathe a sigh of relief and know that your family is going to be okay. And empowerment, because there are a number of tools that are available to you that will help, guide you through, that you can use to make sure you achieve that peace of mind and comfort.
Oh, I like that.
Yep. So
you're up next.
Yeah. So I would say, listen, estate planning, we hear that term and we think about rich families and wealthy people. But if you own a house, you have an estate. If you have any assets in the bank, you have an estate. So you have to make a plan. And if you have family, you have to think about what you want to do. So I would say, listen, you sit down, you take a moment, you look at what you have, right? And you say, okay, what do I want to happen to these things, my stuff, if you will, when I'm gone? Or, I remember when my grandparents went in nursing home. Do I want that for me? Am I going to, is my family going to go through that like I went through that? So you sit back and you look at that and you look at all the things that you have, and you kind of have to think about what it is that you want to do. And and the best way to do it is, of course, consider consulting with an attorneys. Folks like us, like we said, we started off with a free Zoom workshop where we give you all the information, and you come in and we talk about your specific wants and needs. And that's the difference, where we really get an idea of what it is that you want. And it's really, from you, the client, what it is, where would you like to see your money go? Where would you like to see your property go? And that's how we can create an effective plan that will have your voice in it, or your wishes. And that's the difference. And that's the difference between just having, a will. You can go to an attorney and get a will. They'll do one and they'll charge you, and it's great. You walk out the door and you may really not know exactly what you got. Or if it's going to do exactly what you want it to do. If it'll do what you told the attorney, but if you don't have the knowledge, you may not know exactly what it is that you want to be done, and if it's done effectively. So, you sign on to our workshop, we explain all of those things, and then we get you in for what we call a vision meeting. And really, it's your vision, because it's your family, it's your assets, and it's your plan. And we give you the options that are out there. And that's the key: knowing what the options are, knowing what the differences are, and knowing what the costs are. Cost, because there's the cost of not doing a plan is steep, very steep. A lot of people don't want to pay attorneys a lot of money. I get it. I understand it. I don't want to, and I'm okay with that. But if you really understand the cost of probate, or not having a plan, what that does to your family, and like Sharon said, the turmoil that can be created by the fighting over assets between family members and siblings and so forth, there's a real cost there. And if you want to avoid that, it's, pay a little bit for planning now, or pay an exorbitant amount of money to lawyers later on, which is fine. I mean, I'll take 20% of your estate if you really want me to.
Yes.
I'd rather you have a plan, because probate litigation is very difficult and time consuming and extremely expensive.
And I'm glad that you just mentioned that, because, what I was thinking, I was like, okay, people always talking about money. We know costs for food and everything is driven up higher. But for me, I see it as something that if you don't pay for it now, your family is going to be paying for it later.
Yeah.
And if you think that whatever you're going through now is stressful, it's going to be more stressful once you pass if you didn't do everything that you were supposed to be doing. And that too will, and I see it all the time, especially with patients, that leads to more dysfunction of our family and increased stress. And I've even had patients who've died because they've been going back and forth with their siblings, and just the stress of anxiety of all of that has really impacted our family. So
it impacts your mental and physical health.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's what you're all about, right? Fit Doc, you're trying to get us all fit, right, healthy in mind, body, spirit, so that we can live a fulfilling life.
Yes. And that is something that I am so glad that the two of you have come together to do this, and especially with the free Zoom session. So that way people's mind can start to work like, okay, well, you know what? I didn't know that. Let me start to think. And even when they have the meetings, this way they can bring their family members with them and at least have that support. Because sometimes the family doesn't want to come along until they find out that you have something that you can quote unquote leave behind for them. So this is really, like you said, protecting your family from anything impacting them. And because we want everyone to be healthy, mentally, physically, spiritually, sexually, legally, and financially. And with that, I thank you both, Rob Hoskins and Sharon Hoskins, for being our guests on the Fit Doc podcast today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Fit Doc.
Thank you, Rob and Sharon, for sharing your knowledge of how important that it is for us to be financially fit. Now on to our favorite section, really mine. It's called In Real Life. And in real life, I talk about whatever I feel like that I think is important to me. And one of the things that is really super important to me is my hair. So if my hair is not right, I do not feel right, because we all know that when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you do amazing things. That level of confidence, it shows. You feel really good and you make so many positive changes in your life. But it's not always your hair. For some people, it's putting on makeup. Some people, it's putting on their red lipstick. For some people, it is getting another piercing or a tattoo. But whatever it is, make sure that you look good and you enjoy doing it. And as we're talking about looking good, I want to share up some foods that are really important for you to lower your blood pressure, because you're going to be walking, but I also want to make sure that you are aware of what you're eating. So certain foods like citrus fruits, which are grapefruits, oranges, and lemons, those have a powerful effect of lowering your blood pressure. They're loaded with so many vitamins, minerals, plant compounds that will help to reduce your risk of heart disease, which of course then helps to lower your blood pressure. We all love fish. Well, some of us do, but fatty fish like salmon, very high in omega-3 fatty acids, which help to lower your overall cholesterol and also helps to reduce the inflammation that is in your body. And going on to beans and lentils. You're not going to get me singing that bean song, but they can also help to regulate your blood pressure. Very full and packed with fiber, magnesium, potassium, and all of these things will work really well with your heart health. And to further go on with some more foods, because you know everything for me is about food: celery, cilantro, ginseng, cinnamon, sweet basil, ginger. These are all herbs that do show that they can help to lower your blood pressure. Thank you for tuning in today for another episode of the Fit Doc podcast. Hopefully you learned a little bit more about financial fitness, about estate planning, and family law. I want to give a big thank you to the Hoskins for being amazing guests. And remember to look at the links below so you can follow them. As always, eat well, get your steps in, at least 8,000 a day. Get in your financial steps to make sure that you have that generational wealth. And as always, feel good, look good, become confident, and most importantly, don't forget to like and share about the Fit Doc podcast. Until next time.